Hi, and welcome to Stressed, the podcast to develop your stress resilience. Being ambitious and successful while living a happy life is possible. Learn how you can better cope with stress in day-to-day situations by applying tools and techniques that work for you. My name is Julia Arndt, and I'm extremely grateful that you decided to check out my podcast today. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Stressed, the podcast to develop your stress resilience. Thank you so much for checking out today's podcast episode on #recharge, an interview with Hidde de Vries. Hidde is from the Netherlands, and he has been running his own media agency for 6 years. And he also worked for Google for an additional 5 years before he started his own project and stress management and prevention app #recharge. He has been facilitating and coaching well over 10 years and has a really strong personal interest in human well-being, energy management, and stress prevention. It's a wonderful interview with so many rich insights. We are, for example, talking about why Hidde has so much experience managing stress, what he did to relax and prevent burnout, and he also shares with me how he actually got the idea for his new project, #recharge. Once we are starting to jump a little bit more into his app, we are talking about how you can prevent burnout. And we are also talking about why it is actually important to have a really good balance between being stressed in a positive, in a helpful, productive kind of way, and why it is at the same time so important to recharge. He also shares a couple of really cool tips and tricks around why it is so important and so essential to switch off your screens, your TVs, and your devices before going to bed. And he's sharing a couple of really cool insights with me about what he is doing as an entrepreneur to manage his stress levels. So I'm really, really excited about this interview. And after we finished it, Hidde actually shared with me that he also wrote a book called Recharge that is an ebook and only available through him. It's not available online. I was looking at Amazon earlier and I couldn't find it. And he mentioned to me that if any of you, any of my listeners are interested in reading the book, they can just reach out and he's happy to share it with me. And so if you are interested to read his book, if you are after the interview, you're like, yes, this is really what I want to learn more about, then send me an email through the contact form on my website, and I'm more than happy to share the ebook with you. So I hope really that you're taking a lot of really cool insights and learnings from this podcast episode. So without further ado, let's jump in. Hi, Hidde, how are you today?
Good, I'm good, Julia. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
How was your day? Let's pick up a little bit our listeners and tell us about where you are, what time it is, and what you've been up to today.
It's now almost 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening in Amsterdam, Netherlands.
Okay.
And for today, what have I been up to? I've been doing 2 trainings and a presentation, a kickoff presentation for a recharge program. So it was quite a busy day.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. I'm sure like all of the listeners are super curious now about who you are and what you've been doing over the last 5 years and what Recharge is all about.
Yeah. So what I'm doing, or some background about myself. I've been with Google, just like yourself, for 5 years. And actually, Google was a sidestep because I used to have my own company for 6 years. And we were doing really well. Every year we doubled revenue until 2010 finally hit. The crisis finally hit Europe. And the big problem was that in the start of that year, people weren't paying us anymore because of the crisis. So we couldn't pay our people anymore. And that made for some scary times because you've got all these families depending on you. Mm-hmm. And there was just no money coming in. Mm-hmm. I knew at the end of the year, we had a big event, which we had a lot of sponsors for. So I knew that if we would make it till the end of the year, we would be fine. But that whole year was very depressing and negative, and it cost us a lot of energy to really see it through till the end.
What kind of company was it?
It was a printing and publishing company. Okay. So we actually published a magazine, and it was right in the time that internet really started to take off. Okay. So people were like, a magazine? What's that? No, we don't do magazines anymore. We do www.
Okay.
So eventually we managed to finalize the business. We were able to prevent bankruptcy and to really pay off all our creditors and all the people that worked for us. We were able to kind of stop the company there, and then and the only one that wasn't really paid off was myself. So I was completely drained, no energy left whatsoever. And the only thing on my mind was at that moment, because you must imagine there's this whole year of struggling, of working around the clock. Mm-hmm. So my girlfriend wasn't all too excited about it. So we broke up. I was literally sleeping on the couch of a friend of mine. And then the company stopped. And the first and only thing I could think of is, okay, I need more money. I need more. I needed to have a new income. I need a new apartment. And I had to do all these things for myself until I literally got saved by the bell. A friend of mine called me, and he was someone that I knew to be very excited, very energetic. And he was crying. And he went into... we started repeating himself, and he was down, and it sounded all lame. And the only thing I could think of is, how do I get off this phone? And it turned out, I asked him, what's going on with you? And he mentioned, well, I'm in a burnout. And the only thing I could think of was, okay, then you must have happened yesterday, because it sounds so heavy still.
Yeah.
Turns out he was there already for 3 months. And that for me was my wake-up call to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take some time off and just have some really literally recharge time. Mm-hmm. So I went on a world trip with 2 kind of fascinations on my mind. First of all, we're only going to become more busy altogether, because we have more work, there's more expected from us. We have more opportunities, more digital techniques to make our work easier, or to facilitate us to do more work. And on the other hand, we're less capable of dealing with it. Mm-hmm. So whatever we do, we're not doing it right, because we have obesity, we have depression, we have burnouts. It's this whole new set of wealth illnesses, if you like. Mm-hmm. So these were 2 things on my mind. And during my holiday, during my world trip, I actually thought of the program, of the recharge program, to see how you can actually help people rediscover themselves and to really see what they're doing and what kind of unhealthy habits people have, and to really give yourself a short program, because if it's long, we don't have the time. Mm-hmm. So kind of like a challenge, and that's how the recharge came to be. And there were 3 pillars that I knew that they needed to tick, or 3 boxes. 1, it needed to be good, because if it's not good, we won't do it. Second, it needed to be fun, because if no fun, we don't do it. And the third thing is what got me into Google, actually, is it needed to be scalable. Because I can do coaching, and I can prevent someone from going right down that burnout hole, but coaching is time costly, and it's costly. So it costs a lot of time, and it costs a lot.
Yeah.
So it needed to be scalable, and I started out excuse me, I started out setting up my own website and getting to know WordPress and all these kind of affiliate systems, and there was so much to learn. And at a certain moment, after a few months, I had Didn't make so much money yet as they promised in all the videos. I wasn't a millionaire yet.
Yeah.
And I was looking and I thought, you know what? I might as well start working at a company that is going to teach me online and pay me at the same time.
Mhm.
So, long story short, I figured, well, what's the best place to learn about online and digital? Ended up at Google and worked there for 5 years. And I have to say, after the first year, I didn't do anything about recharge because I was just soaking up the whole Google experience.
Yeah. And you
Everything
started in
was.
Dublin in Ireland as well, right?
What's that?
You started in Dublin in Ireland at Google?
Yeah.
And you were there the whole 5 years, or did you move to Amsterdam eventually?
No, I was there the first year. So the first year was in Dublin. And then I wanted to move actually to the States because Google is from America. So where better to learn everything and to really get that vibe than in the States. However, they told me quite early in the process that if you want to go from Dublin to the States, you need to be in Dublin for at least 2 years.
Mhm.
And Dublin was nice, but it wasn't going to be 2 years of waiting in Dublin. And my manager at the time in the Netherlands asked if I wanted to come work in the Netherlands. So I figured, you know what, I'll do 1 year Dublin, 1 year Amsterdam, and then on to the States.
Okay.
I never quite made that last step.
Okay.
But I had a great time. I mean, in my time at Google, I found at a certain moment I had a sales training from a guy from Paris, and I really, really loved that training. And the only thing I could think of is, okay, but if I really want to own this content, if I really want to know how this is done, then the only way of being a complete expert is to start facilitating this training myself.
Mhm.
So I started doing some training work, and that actually felt like something I wanted to do more. So I started doing more training and more training, traveling all over the world, which was amazing. Facilitating sessions for Googlers from Russia to the States to Asia. It was an amazing time until my manager called me and she said, "Well, Hidde, I don't know where you are right now, but your job is in Amsterdam, not all over the world." And so we decided, okay, you know what? Maybe I should start with coaching then, because coaching is something you can do over Hangout, just like we're doing right now. However, the first 4 people I coached at Google actually left. So I figured if I don't want to be number 5, then I might as well choose a different direction.
Okay.
Now, by that time, I had already written my book. I had done a TED talk, and I figured, and I did a training that was actually quite amazing. A training for the European leadership team of Google.
Okay.
So on vitality. And I figured, well, if my passion is in this training business, and my whole goal actually to start at Google was to get to know online in order to improve my program, then maybe this is the time that I need to wave goodbye and start working on my exit, so to speak. So, that was 2 years ago. I left 2 years ago and started focusing completely on recharge. And we now have a new app. We've now launched a couple of videos of testimonials. So we have a Google team that went through the program. We have rituals that went through the program. We just did a scientific research with one of the biggest recruitment agencies in the Netherlands, Young Capital. And we did an official test and research in the effects of the program in after a week, after a month, and after 4 months. And the results are amazing. So we're now really starting to get this whole thing going, and it's quite an amazing ride.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Thanks so much for sharing all of this. So I've got so many questions. The first thing is I want to go back a little bit to when you had like this whole kind of revelation, I guess, almost, where you were like, oh, like I'm gonna get almost into a burnout. And you said you were traveling. How long did you travel, and what did you learn?
I think 3 months then.
3 months?
3 months.
Okay. And how did you was that just enough for you to be like, oh, okay, like I'm recovered now and I can get back into kind of the next adventure? Or were there any other tools that you use in order to start to be more mindful?
Well, the thing is, when I left for India. So I first went 2 weeks to Osho, the Osho meditation retreat, which is kind of like a Disney fanfare, what do you call it, entertainment park for meditation people.
Yeah.
Um, it's they have everything there, so it's one big um, entertainment park. I don't have
Okay.
another word for it. So I went there for 2 weeks, had an amazing time, and then went on to Thailand to visit some friends.
Okay.
Off to Melbourne, where a friend of mine was living, and that's actually where I thought of the whole recharge program.
Okay.
Underneath a palm tree on the beach of Sitkilda.
Very nice.
And it's actually quite funny because I was waiting for my friend there, and he was late. And I didn't have a watch, but I saw there was a church near the beach with a big clock on it, and I saw that it was half an hour late. And my phone was still in the hostel, so I couldn't call him. And the only thing I could think of was, well, actually, I'm now under a palm tree in the sun on the beach. Even I don't have a business, I don't have a house, I don't have an apartment, I don't have a girlfriend, I don't have nothing. So, even if he doesn't show up, who cares? I'm having me time.
Yeah.
And then I figured all of a sudden it was this realization that I thought, oh, but if you would have asked me this half a year ago, I would have gone berserk, because I could have called you, I could have set up a project, and while I was thinking this underneath that palm tree in Melbourne, I noticed that my muscles were tensing, my heart started racing, my blood started pumping. I literally had a fight or flight response under a palm tree in the sun for someone not showing up. And that's when I realized that I was so over the edge already, that you can be so impacted. And that's when I realized I need to start working on something and creating something that actually helps people literally recharge themselves when they feel they need to.
Yeah. That's really awesome. I'm also thinking like that was in 2010, 2011, where like anxiety and depression, that was all really new. And if you would talk about the burnout or anxiety at that point, it was always like, oh my God, like this person is like a workaholic, or like it was something really negative. I feel like nowadays it's almost in our everyday life kind of word use, like because everybody has some kind of experience in that area, it feels like almost.
Yeah, it's funny. I just wrote a column for one of the news agencies here in the Netherlands, and it's actually about this hype around burnout. And that's one thing that frightening is the right word, but it frightens me that because it's such a hype, everyone is claiming to either know someone or has been in a burnout themselves, and everything now is covered in the phenomenon of burnout. So people that just have a little illness, or people that think that they have some arguments with their employer or whatever, every excuse now can kind of be, what's the word for it, justified under the big call out
the
of
burnout umbrella. Yeah.
So that makes it a little bit, and with the hype also comes a lot of companies that want to play in the hype or play a part or do their part, which makes it also quite, how do you say that, untransparent. So there's so much now around the whole burnout, and actually there's so many people that really know how to deal with it and how to really help people.
Yeah.
So we come across companies, we work a lot with companies, and we come across a lot of companies that tell me stories that their employee had a coach, and this coach recommended that he or she do a little walk after lunch. which in itself is great, but just taking a walk every day isn't going to prevent you from getting a burnout. Mm-hmm. So people don't look that extra parts into how they actually can really help someone, and it's more one size fits all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big hype at the moment.
So what do you think then? So that's actually a really interesting topic. How should we approach like this topic more holistically? Because it's not just like, you can't just prevent burnout by going on a walk every day. Like what does Recharge propose? How does Recharge?
Well, what we do with the Recharge program is we have a 5-day program which you do online. Mm-hmm. And instead of just focusing on one element, we focus on all of them. So we've got 5 pillars, which is nutrition, exercise, relaxation, mindset, and focus. Okay. And all these things are valuable if you want to do something for yourself. So you need to take into account all these 5 pillars, is our belief. And the thing is, we tell you, we advise you for nutrition, we advise you for sleep, we give you tips on how to improve your sleep, we help you get more focus in your life, to have a clear goal of where you want to go. And through these exercises that you do for a week, you do it all through your normal working week, because we can go to Bali and have a great time and come back after a week. We open our laptop and buff, gone is all the peace and mindfulness. Yeah. So that's why you do it with your team during the week. And the thing with it is that because you are really challenged to change your habits, to change your the way you do your normal work, your work day, the way you set it up, that really makes people realize, hey, wait, there's more than just what's every day than I do every day, right? So you really experience the difference that a different lifestyle can do to you.
Okay. That's great. And so it's 5 days. That's really interesting as well, because usually they say, forming a new habit takes 21 days or 28 days or a month. Like, how's the thinking around that?
That's actually quite a common question that I get. Mm-hmm. Is 5 days then enough? Because 21 days, 60 days. The problem is, if I tell you to do something for 21 days, you scare away pretty much 80-90% of the people that should be interested. Mm-hmm. And what you want to achieve in companies is just a huge participation. Mm-hmm. So even people that participate in a program and don't follow through and that quit after 2 days, still when we talk to them, they'll be like, yeah, no, it was too tough for me, I quit, and it wasn't my thing, and but I still do the cold shower in the morning, or I still cut down on my coffee, or it really made me think. And it was funny, during my last holiday, we were in Jamaica, and I was sitting in the pool with this typical English bloke, this really English guy, bit of a tummy, obviously drinking beer, talking about football. And as I don't have that much going on with football or soccer, we started talking about what you do in life. And I told him, well, this was after 1 week. We just arrived together. And our kids were playing, and it was good. And he said, well, how's your life? And I could only think, well, I'm really keen on going back to work, because I love my work. Then I want to go and go back actually and start work. And he looked at me. He's like, "You're a moron. What's going on there?" And so I told him what I did, and he was like, in the end of the holidays, like, I'll try that Recharge. Can you send me the program? Can I buy it? So he started doing it. He did it for 2 days, and then he called me. He's like, "Are you insane? I cannot do this. This is horrible." 4 weeks later, he calls me. He says, "Hidde, guess what? I haven't been drinking for 3 weeks, and I haven't eaten meat for a whole week." He's like, "I feel like a new person." And he's just raging and raving about it. And that's the beauty of it. Everybody takes away something that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here to tell you how to live your life. And I think that's also coming back to your question, like, what's the answer for burnout? There is no one size fits all. But what you do want to achieve is that you get people thinking of their own habits and of their own daily practices and everything, and to make them realize that they're not a victim of life, but that they can actually make their own choices, and for them to become proactive and take ownership. I think if you are able to create that, then you've achieved a whole lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because I'm just participating in an online conference at the moment. It's taking place in Germany, and it's an online conference on stress.
Mm-hmm.
And they have 25 different speakers, and they talk like, they have all different backgrounds, and they basically speak about stress and how they manage it, or what kind of businesses they have around it. And one of the speakers, I think she was a therapist, she talked about how stress is actually just a new word for fear, because we are afraid of, like, like anxiety and depression, and it's always like we are maybe afraid of having a conversation with our manager, or we are afraid of taking a certain step in our life, and then that fear basically creates that stress, and that's why that can lead to burnout or anxiety. What do you think about that?
Well, I know that fear can cause stress.
Mm-hmm.
Because stress in itself is not bad. Stress is literally what you do when you train as well. So if you do a weight lift, you stress your muscle,
Mm-hmm.
and then you release it. You stress your muscle and you release. So that's not bad. Stress also helps us perform at our best when we have a deadline or something, or you have that stress going on stage. Stress really gets your adrenaline pumping and everything. The problem is when we have too much stress too often, then it becomes a problem.
Exactly.
And you can still last for years before something terrible happens.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's the way we look at stress that gets us even more stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much the fact that we're stressed, it's also the fact that we stress about having the stress. And the problem is that if you stress about having stress, then you start playing this thing over and over, and it becomes a roller coaster in your head. Mm-hmm. And I think there's more things that you can be stressed about or become stressed of, and that's not just fear. It can also be a deadline or just too much work. Mm-hmm. I agree that if you have that too much and too often, then it can feel like fear. It can become fear, but that's also because you're just activating that fight or flight system continuously. Exactly. So what actually happens is your body has this fight or flight response, right? So that's really from your limbic and reptile brain what do you call that? Reflex that we have that saves us from harm. Mm-hmm. However, that system doesn't know the difference between a tiger that we used to have in the old days versus an email that might be threatening. Yeah. Or just think of the moments when you're driving from one place to another. How often are you not cut off, or somebody is hitting the brakes, or that finger goes up and you're like, that kind of stress. Yeah, of course. That also triggers this kind of fight or flight. And I always say in my trainings, I have people experience this fight or flight, and what happens in your body. And your whole body is at work when you have this fight or flight response. So your view narrows, your stomach will crumble together, you'll hi doggy. I see a dog coming up. Your blood starts rushing a little bit harder, your heart starts pounding, you have this adrenaline rush, cortisol comes free. And all these things happen in an instant, in a blink of an eye. And this, your whole body shuts itself up to fight or flight. Mm-hmm. So you can only imagine how heavy that is if you have that 20 times, 30 times, maybe 50 times a day.
Exactly.
And then To give you a simple example, because people then, especially if they're overstressed already, they become cynical. But they say, yeah, but we don't have tigers in the office, and I don't believe la la la.
Mhm.
There's research from Sony Ericsson that tells you that if it takes longer than 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, for a web page, a mobile page on your phone to load, that already releases the same amount of stress hormones as watching a horror movie by yourself.
Wow.
And if you then consider that we are nowadays about, in an average, say 200 times a day on our mobile phone, and the amount of times that we open up web pages that aren't really loading that fast already, you can only imagine how often we get stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in combination with deadlines, in combination with social media, which is also a very big stress for a lot of people. See, social media, and he already starts barking. Social media is great, don't get me wrong, but you have to know how to use it, because also social media is really set up to be addictive.
Yeah.
The more often you open Facebook, the more advertisements you'll see, the more money they make, and that's normal logic, and it's not something you should blame them for it, but you should know that that's the way it works, and handle it in the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. Like, I love all of the examples that you just gave, and I've obviously heard a lot about that as well. And I think the biggest problem is that we are not aware of it, right? That we like these things that happen, we just kind of feel the consequences at some point, but that all of these things that you just mentioned, like the social media things and the emails or the website not loading, all these little triggers, like actually get us tense, and we don't do anything about actually relaxing. We just are in this cycle the whole time, and then we go home and we think that laying on the couch and scrolling through our social media feed is actually relaxing exercise, you know.
It's the same as television, for example. So in the program we have this thing where you have to switch off all devices at 9:30. The reason is threefold. One is that the artificial light, it stops your melatonin, your sleep hormone, from being produced. So if you, sorry, we had a late night yesterday. If you have to, your melatonin starts around 8, 9 to start working its magic. So it helps you fall asleep more easy. So if you have artificial light coming at you, and even if it's just from a small screen, it stops the hormone because it thinks that it's still daytime. So it stops being produced. Then the second thing is that if you watch television or you watch social media or anything, there's still this constant edge. Right, a television series will get you on your edge because that's why you want to watch it. You want to see what's going on, and then there's this thing that you go to bed, and all of a sudden, I just had it the other day again, and of course, I mean, I know how it works, but still, you forget, or
we're
it happens.
Constantly perfecting ourselves too, right?
Yeah, and I was actually. Strolling through my phone, and it wasn't even in bed. It was before I went to bed. But I saw something on one of the websites we have in the Netherlands where they post all these videos, but funny, but also insulting videos or whatever.
Okay.
And there was this little kid that got harassed by 20 guys in a park, and they hit him, and it was really unfair and really unfriendly, and it really got to me. So watching this video, and I could only think like, oh, and I could feel this tension building up inside me. And I put down my phone and I realized, oh shit, this is the reason why you shouldn't watch this before going to bed. Because literally 1 hour later, you're still consuming that one video of 20 seconds to a minute, but you're still consuming it an hour later.
Yeah.
So But also social media, right? You're finally in your bed, and all of a sudden I see you having a great podcast, and I see someone else on the boat, and I see someone else partying, and I'm in my bed thinking, shit, should I be there? Or so that makes it really hard to unwind before sleeping. And sleep is your biggest recharge that you have during the day or at nighttime then, but it's the biggest thing that will help you recharge. Yeah. And we just neglect it. We all think, but I can do with 6 hours of sleep. It's fine.
I'm totally fine. Yeah, I know.
No sleep is exhausting. It's literally, yeah.
So what do you do as an entrepreneur to manage your stress? Because you're obviously very aware of all the things that you need to be doing.
Yeah.
But how well do you think you manage it, and what do you do?
Well, what I do, I live. The thing is, our philosophy, or one of our saying that we stole from someone, but I don't have a clue who came up with it. But you don't need to be sick to become better. And what we do with Recharge is, people used to always say, yeah, but then you have to be sick, and it's not the concept of Recharge. Recharge is actually like interval training. If I look at my mom, she's 72, and she goes every week. She does a little round running in a very slow pace, but she's doing it, and she feels really proud afterwards. That's how a lot of people train. They walk their walk, same pace, same round, and that's nice, but that's not exercise. If you want to train like an athlete, if you want to be a top performer, you train by interval. So you train hard and low, and hard and low, and hard and low. So you prepare for different variations of strength. However, in our daily lives, in our work, we need to be athletes as well. We need to be on top of the game. If we want to make a promotion, we need to be better and better. We need to improve ourselves. But what we do in work is we come in the office, we work, raise tension. With a bit of luck, you have a break for lunch, and then you work, and then boom, then it goes down. So there's no relaxation or escape from it all. You're just working, continues, day in, day out, and so it continues. The problem there is that with Recharge, you don't actually stop working, but you give yourself a little bit peace of mind, and then you can go on even better. So it's a performance enhancer, if you like. And then once you've done the Recharge, you go on with your normal life. And obviously, you're going to return to your maybe not so good habits, or you'll adjust a few. So as you take at least one thing out of the program, it's already worth its value. And then if you do it more often, you kind of get the hang of certain things. So there's in level 3, there's no coffee. So we have different levels, so everybody can now participate together. And there's no coffee in level 3. And every time I do the Recharge, the first 2 days suck. There's no coffee, and I have to get off that coffee rush, that addiction. So there might be a little bit of headache, but also the loss of something. It's literally like an addiction coffee. However, if I stop with the Recharge, I drink tea for a long time, and then all of a sudden I go back and have some coffees now and then, and which is fine, But then you see that you become less addicted to caffeine, and you notice that you actually enjoy having a cold shower in the morning because you know that it makes you feel better. So by doing the Recharge program on different moments, things become more of a part of your life. And that's what I have as well. So I do, I wake up in time. I don't snooze. I have a little baby boy, so I stand up quite early. And I try to exercise, but for example, that with a baby boy is hard to combine. So I've accepted that I only exercise once a week, and if I'm lucky, maybe twice. But I do take cold showers. I eat quite healthy. We don't eat vegan or vegetarian, but we do eat vegan meals now and then, and maybe three times a week meat in the evening, where we used to eat like 7 days a week.
Yeah.
More mindful of taking breaks, changing work environment, work setting. And yeah, I'm lucky. I found something that I do that really energizes me as well. So if I do a kickoff presentation for Recharge, or if I facilitated training somewhere, it just energizes me to the max. So that's also a good thing.
Okay. And do you still do meditation? I'm curious because you said you went to a meditation place in India.
I do. I do it, but not. What I love to do is in the morning before the day starts to have a kind of meditation to ease down your dreams. Mm-hmm. I have quite intense dreams always, and if I do meditation before my day starts, it gets me grounded. The only thing is with a little baby boy, he doesn't wait till daddy's meditation is over, so I can hear him cry in the background, and then it's his turn.
It's over.
So I do take my moments when I'm in the car, for example. I don't close my eyes, but I do focus on the nothingness in my mind. So I try to seize all thoughts while driving, but it's still a way to kind of put that meditation in my day.
That's awesome. I always have a couple of questions at the end of each interview, guest or interview itself for the podcast. So the first one is, what are you most grateful for?
It's going to sound very cliche, but my baby boy of 16 months, Boot, we just had the most fun together, reading books, and him throwing me over from one side to the other. So that's it's a bless. And what I'm really grateful for in work is that I get to do this amazing job where we can actually work with companies and really make a difference in people's lives. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, is a big blessing.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited for this work. I think that's so awesome, and all the companies that you're already working with as well. I think it's such an important project and such important work. So I'm really glad we got connected. What are your 3 most important wisdoms that you would pass on to the rest of the listeners?
My 3 most important wisdoms. Well, I've actually just set up 3 wisdoms or values for myself in order to scale up the business, and for myself to really stick to the business, because as an entrepreneur you get so many things and everything is cool and you want to be involved in everything, and probably not even for just entrepreneurs, also for whatever it is that you do. People do social media and we see all these things and want to be everywhere and do everything. So the 3 things that I set up for myself is, first of all, practice what you preach. Now, for me, that brings everything together, because even I noticed at a certain point, like, hey, wait, I'm quite stressed and I work 24/7. And is this actually what I preach? No. So I started practice what you preach. Every day in the morning, I say that to myself, and it gets me literally grounded. It's like, oh yeah, wait. Mm-hmm. Second is focus. So I have a shitload of ideas coming through on an hourly basis, so to speak. So I get all these ideas. People that work with me go nuts because it's, we can do it so, and should we set up a podcast? Or should we not? So I found this way to start focusing more on the things that really going to help my bigger picture. So I have my bigger picture in my mind. Our goal is to improve the lives of 1 million people, and we now have the first percent, so 1%, 10,000 people that joined the program, and it makes it very clear to me, either my actions should contribute to this 1 million people, to reach 1 million people, or it should contribute to making the program even better. And if it doesn't do one of these, then it's easier to say no and to focus literally on what on the on our mission. So focus, and then literally recharge. So recharge literally for me as well is continuously being aware that you can go on and on and on and on, but that's not what you want to do. You want to recharge in order to upload your batteries, or to load up your batteries, and really be more energetic and able to deliver better performance. Mm-hmm. So yeah, practice what you preach, focus, and recharge.
I should write them all down for myself too. I totally connect with that as an entrepreneur at the moment. I have so many ideas and so many things that are going on. It's hard to stay focused. And people are like, Julia, you're like a stress manager now. Like, you should be totally aware of what you have to do. I'm like, I know, but it's really hard to do it sometimes, you know? That's why you have coaches.
That's the funny thing. I know a lot of, and that was what I was mentioning before as well. There's a lot of people that either had a negative experience regarding burnout or whatever, and or had too much shit in their work, or it wasn't matching with what they thought it would be, and then all of a sudden become like a stress counselor or a coach or whatever, but have no clue of how to hold themselves together. So you get this really stressed coach that's then helping you with burnout or with stress. And it's funny, but that's just what I meant with the whole hype around burnout at the moment. Yeah.
Is there a book that really inspired you, or that you like read multiple times over because you think it's so valuable?
There's actually a lot of books that I think, I should read this again, and then I never come to do it. But I read a lot. I don't read very fast, so it takes a while, but I do read. I do read a lot. There's one obvious one, I think, especially for people interested in the whole subject of stress and performance and energy, which is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That's a book. You'll notice if people read that, if they've read it, you'll notice from them. You'll see it. I don't know what happens, but people just have this different mindset after reading that book. That's the only book that I read twice. So that's one that I really love, and there's so many more around. Tony Crabb with Busy. I really enjoyed that one. Okay. Tony was presenting at an event that we organized, and he's getting his second book out. There's a focus management, let's say, guru in Amsterdam, a friend of mine, who has written now 5 books already on the subject of focus. Very easy and straightforward, but also insightful books. What else? Yeah, there's quite a lot of books.
Yeah. Tony Crabb, Busy, or I Am Busy? What is the...
No, busy, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes as well for people.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you already mentioned kind of what your next plans are, because you want to get to 1 million users of the Recharge app. How do you get there?
Well, we started out working through the consumers. We aimed at the consumers as our business market, but what we found is that if you want to reach consumers, you need to have a guru. So you kind of need to be the Tony Robbins for the program. And I don't want to be a Tony Robbins. I'd love to be, because he's, I think, in a lot of aspects, amazing, all that respect. But that's not for me. I love the business. I love growing the business. I love to achieve that mission. And that's really what excites me. I don't need to be on stage and telling everybody how to become energetic. So we decided, as well as for focus, to kill that darling and kill the whole consumer marketing aspect. And now we're focusing completely on companies and teams. So teams within companies. And we're now, we've got the program in English, in Dutch and in English. And for example, Rituals is one of the companies that has international offices. They started out in Amsterdam, and they're now offering it to all their international offices. So our aim is really to grow and to see if we can set up subsidiaries or franchise in different countries, to have people on the floor, on the ground in these countries, and really start scaling it up. and so thereby reaching our goal.
That's such a cool idea. I love it. And so, how can people reach out to you or learn more about Recharge?
We've got hashtag recharge.com and then written out. So HASHTAGRECHRGC. You have that in notes.com. So that's our website. We're on LinkedIn, obviously, and a little bit of an Instagram, but we don't really do that very well. Again, their focus and LinkedIn, considering companies and teams, is for us a lot more relevant than all the other social medias. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, if somebody's listening now from a company and is like, I think this is so awesome, like I would love to, I don't know, propose this to our human resource department, do they find like a way to connect with you on the website?
Yeah. So we've got our contact form, we've got a phone number. People can reach one of my colleagues and make an appointment, or it depends. We can also drop by, fly in, whatever. Yeah.
Sounds great. Okay.
It's almost like a normal business.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much. This was so interesting and so much fun. I learned already so much just from this 1 hour conversation with you. So thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure was all mine.
All the best, Hidde. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be extremely happy and grateful if you could leave me a comment and a 5-star rating. If you know someone who would benefit from the information I talked about today, please feel free to share it with them, no matter if it is your friends, your colleagues, and/or your family members. You will always find all links and a summary of the podcast in the show notes. It would be great if we could connect on Instagram or via email. You can find all details of how to find me in the show notes as well. In that way, you can also send me any questions that you might have. And as I mentioned, I also have a wonderful YouTube channel now where you can post comments and questions, so please reach out. I'm glad you're listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for your trust. With gratitude, Julia.